All right, it's one after the hour. Good morning if you're in the Pacific or the West Coast. Good afternoon if you're on Central or Eastern time zone. This is Hope Batwell. I'm the Executive Director for ARIA, and we are pleased to release this year's State of Asia America report to our membership and the general public, thanks to the generous support and partnership with REMAX and also with Freddie Mac. A little bit of history about the State of Asia America report. So back in 2016, as Tom and other leaders and other members recall, ARIA embarked on a campaign called the No Other Campaign. And it was a collective effort with the entire membership and leadership and other partners to ask the U.S. Census Bureau to disaggregate data on its quarterly housing report. Since the inception of the report, which is, I think, back in the 60s or the 70s, the U.S. Census Bureau would provide a quarterly housing report that included race and ethnicity. And unfortunately, Asian Americans were included in a category called Other. And so in 2016, we had asked and worked with the U.S. Census to lobby for giving us our standalone category. And I'm pleased to report, as a lot of you know, that July of 2017, the U.S. Census Bureau had agreed to disaggregate the data and report Asian Americans as its own distinct category on the U.S. quarterly housing report. So that really is the genesis of this report. And since that time, we have been publishing and compiling a report of what is going on with the Asian American and Pacific Islander community. It is the fastest growing demographic within the country. And I'm sure Tom is excited to share some of our findings and some of the new data sets that we are included in this report. I believe that before I'm handing it to Tom, I am introducing a couple of our speakers and a couple of our sponsors, Mike Reagan from REMAX and Cindy Waldron from Freddie Mac. So quick introduction on Mike. Mike Reagan leads the global development for REMAX with franchise operations in more than 100 countries and territories outside the U.S., including REMAX of Western Canada. Mike also leads the REMAX Collection, which is more of their luxury divisions. And Mike also leads REMAX Commercial, which under his direction now has grown into one of the top 15 commercial brokerages networks in the world. In addition, in his spare time, Mike manages REMAX relief efforts, the industry partnerships, including ARIA, that's focused on inclusion and diversity in real estate, and the commitment to local communities through the 27-year partnership between REMAX and Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. The next sponsor remarks will be from Cindy Waldron. I had the privilege of joining Cindy in a couple of panels. Cindy is the Director of Analytics and Research in the Single Family Affordable Lending and Access to Credit Division of Freddie Mac. And Cindy's responsibilities include research and evolving needs of the affordable and underserved markets. She provides leadership and coordination for regulatory goals and reporting. She also leads the analytic data and expands the distribution and access to credit, working with sourcing to target and purchase underserved and goal-rich loans, and providing support to new affordable offerings, programs, and services. Cindy is certainly not new within the industry. She's been within the industry for over 20 years. She joined Freddie Mac in 1999 and since then has held many leadership roles within single-family model and analytics and single-family affordable lending and access to credit areas. So without further ado, Mike, I will, is it Mike first and then Tom, or Mike and then Cindy and then Tom? Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Hope or Charlie, can you please forward the slide to the next slide, please?
Yeah, just 1 second. It seems like we're having a little bit of an issue. Just one moment.
Okay. Mike, feel free to unmute your microphone if you can and give us.
There we go.
I see opening remarks. Yes.
All right.
Great. Good morning, everyone. Really appreciate everybody being on the call. And thanks to Tom and Hope for including us and give us the opportunity to sponsor the State of Asia America report. You know, we're very proud of our partnership with ARIA going on and starting our 5th year, I think. But as Hope mentioned, you know, RE/MAX is a global network. We have associates in more than 100 countries and territories. More importantly, RE/MAX associates understand and respect the cultural differences of diverse populations. The AAPI community, you know, as we know, is rapidly growing demographic, and it is going to help grow our nation's economy and be a huge benefit to our collective business, of course, in the real estate industry. We enthusiastically support ARIA, and we're pleased to co-sponsor the 2018-19 State of Asia America report. We believe it's the most comprehensive compilation of Asian American and Pacific Islander real estate and economic data available today. And to all of our listeners and your network, we encourage you to not only study the report, but share it with your entire network. You know, this webinar will give you great insight. And I guess on a personal note, what I'd ask you to do, and as we went through the report, is just kind of keep a paper on the side and write down your own personal highlights, because we're all in this together, and it's very important that we all, you know, be able to illustrate the value of the report and share it with our peers. So thanks for including RE/MAX, and as we always say with our partnership with ARIA, we're proud to be adjacent to success, and we applaud you on all the work you've done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Terrific. Thanks for joining us. Cynthia, would you please go ahead and share with us your opening remarks?
Yes, good afternoon. Unlike Mike, I'm on the East Coast, and so it's afternoon. And so again, it's great to partner with Mike, RE/MAX, and ARIA on this report. I think you'll find very valuable information to help with sourcing new borrowers of the future. And so we look forward to having you present the report and looking at the analysis. And I can't stress, like Mike said, you know, please read it. I think it will help you. I find it very encouraging. I think it shows just how strong this community is and how ready they are to be homeowners and mortgage ready. And I think it's very exciting news. Thank you.
All right, Cynthia, thank you very much. Next slide, please. So folks, my name is Tom Trong. I have the pleasure of being the national president for the Asian Real Estate Association of America. We are now 17,000 members strong and 49 chapters spread out in North America, throughout the states, as well as 2 Canadian provinces. And the reason we continue to put this report out is to give the general public an idea and an education about what is the state of the AAPI community. Today, in the next 20 minutes that's left, I will share with you some important information and facts about our community and how diverse we are, where we are growing geographically, and sort of highlight some of the opportunities that our partners, our members, and those who want to do business and learn how to do business with the Asian American Pacific Islander community can leverage this State of Asia America report to drill down on our demographics. Our community is now rapidly growing. We're one of the fastest growing community in the country, and by 2055 we will have outpaced all other community groups as the largest minority group in the United States. Okay. And so just to let you know, whoops, I'm gonna go back, Charlie. So before we get into it, we want to show you where we got some of the sources of research. Okay, since 2016, and we got our other box. Instead of we were lumped into the other with all other minority groups, we got our own checkbox for the AAPI community, and as a result, we were able to fine-tune some of our data from the U.S. quarterly census report to provide deeper, more meaningful, more accurate research. So the research comes from the U.S. Census Bureau, and of course the rest of the bullet points on this slide here: the Pew Research, Nielsen, our friends at Freddie Mac, the Asian American Advancing Justice, and so many more partners who allow us to, who share the information with us. What you're going to find in this report is some really interesting statistics. You're going to find some demographics, not just nationally, but you're going to find demographics drilling down to the regional, to regions. Here at ARIA, we have sort of divided our map into 5 different regions of the country. We're going to be covering those regions later on today. One of the things that we've done new this year for the 2019 State of Asia America report is give you not only a regional data, right, but we also have a track on the growth of the entrepreneurs in the community. We also have a section on women. We also have a section on our Canadian AAPI community, and we break down the consumer habits. We break down, we sort of show you the educational levels for the AAPI community, where we contribute economically to the economy, who we are as not only national investors, but international investors, where the money's coming from all across the country, how money moves as relates to real estate and other spending habits. And of course, we're going to end with showing you the home ownership rate and some a quick slide about the data that we get from mortgages, how our AAPI community is a high use, continuing to use higher levels of mortgages, and of course, high rates of home ownership. Next slide, please. Let's start with our population. I mentioned earlier that in 35 or 36 years or so, the AAPI community will outpace that of Hispanic Americans and will be the largest minority group in the United States. We are certainly the fastest growing racial segment in the United States, and not just from coast to coast, from East Coast to the West Coast, but we're finding that our population growth is also happening in the South as well as in the Midwest, okay? When we put this report out, when we started doing this report back in 2016, our population was about 22 million strong AAPI here. And today it stands at 25.7 million. And we continue to grow in population. And the interesting thing is the growth in our community is propelled by immigration. We hear a lot of news now coming out about immigration and maybe stopping population immigration growth, but boy, the AAPI community continues to grow rapidly to the tune of 1 million or more per year. Next slide, please. So who are we as a population? The AAPI generally this is interesting. We live 6 years longer than the average population. Yeah, and you wonder why? Well, it's because we highly, we take our health and our diet very seriously. And we, believe it or not, over-index on the fresh foods, on fruits, on fish, and on vegetables. And this is something I'd like to celebrate, right? The AAPI don't normally do a good job celebrating our wins. Some of the things that we want to celebrate is our education. We are one of the most educated racial group in the country. Our enrollment rates for basically enrolling into colleges increased from 198,000 in 1976 to nearly 1.7 million in 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, that's an 860% growth over the last 43 years in terms of those enrolling in college education, okay? When you think about that growth, where we have a compounding rate growth of about 20% year over year of AAPI high school students who basically enrolled in 4-year colleges. Okay, and there you have it. The statistic shows that 80% of our high school students immediately enroll in college, compared to the national average of about 70%. So in our culture, education is extremely important. Let's talk about some of the economic impact and economics about our community. We are strong contributors in the economy. How are we strong contributors? Well, not only are a lot of us in the real estate related industries, but we're also heavy business owners. We create jobs, and as you are well aware, here in the U.S., a lot of jobs are created by small businesses. You would think that the large corporations create the most amount of jobs, but it's not true. It's small businesses that create the majority of jobs here in the United States, and the AAPI are leaders in that. Because of our economic contributions, our high levels of economic contribution, we've demonstrated that we are rigorously disciplined in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, and that continues to fuel our growth. It's funny, we always say in the community, at least I know, I was basically raised saying, hey, Tom, when you go to school, you make sure you do your best in school. You study hard, you study longer than everybody else to make sure you achieve those high grades. When you go to work, you be the first to show up and the last to leave, and you don't leave until your job is done. And that entrepreneurial spirit is very strong in our community. And you'll find that as you dive deeper in these reports once we release it at the end of this conference call. Okay. Our income and our buying power is tremendous. You see here, this is the national average. Of the national average, median household income is $20,000 higher than the U.S. average. The U.S. average is about $53,000, and the AAPI community basically over-indexes by another $20,000 at $73,000. Our individual median income is at $66,000, which is $16,000 above the U.S. average. And in 2018, our community exceeded $1 trillion in purchasing power. What does that mean to the general public? Well, $1 trillion compared to other world economies ranks the AAPI as the 17th largest economy in the world. That is one below the entire country of Mexico and one above that of Turkey. So combined here in North America, our purchasing power is tremendous. Next slide, please. And by the way, when we in the last few slides, we're going to break down and drill down to the regions, which I'll get to. Just stay on the slide for a second. But we'll drill down and we'll show you that regionally we also over-index in terms of our purchasing power and our income rates. Okay, so AAPIs as a entrepreneurial community, over 2 million owned businesses, and we produce over $708 billion in annual average sales volume. From the years 2007, 2012 alone, just that 5 short years, we saw a increase, a 24% increase or expanded growth in the AAPI businesses, small businesses that opened up. And when we grew by 24% in numbers, the overall sales volume actually went to 38% in terms of sales volume. So as a community, we put out a lot of gross domestic product and gross domestic sales for the country. Next slide, please. Now we're going to break down in terms of our regional distributions on what it means from the AAPI community, how we impact the South, the Midwest, the Northeast, and the Western parts of the country. By the way, we try to stay and anticipate the growth, and always try to stay ahead of the curve. Which, as a community, we try to stay 2 to 3 steps ahead, and certainly here at ARIA, we try to stay ahead of the curve. In the South, as you can see, 23% of the entire population and of the entire 25.7 million population live in the South. Our population in the South grew by 70% in the last, between 2000 and 2010, and no other ethnic group experienced greater growth in any of these regions. And because we anticipated the growth, our 2 newest chapters opened up in the South, right? We just opened up Birmingham, Alabama, and we also opened up Jacksonville, Florida, as 2 of the newest ARIA chapters. In those communities, you'll find that the median household income for the AAPI community was $85,000, which is significantly higher than the total of the population. So in the South, we also over-index, and the population growth continues to increase there. And we continue to position ourselves for future growth in all of these areas. Next slide, please. In the Midwest, we have 12% of our $25.7 million live in the Midwest, and it's rapidly increasing. Increasing, we find, because of growth, jobs growing in that area. Cost of living is more reasonable than the coasts, and basically, our population is trying to and continuing to improve their livelihood and improve their quality of life, and then moving from the East and the West to the Midwest and the South. Our population growth for the 10 years counting from 2000 to 2010, almost 48%. North Dakota, of all states, experienced an 85% increase in just 2 years alone. And in the Midwest, our household income averaged about $91,000. Once again, well above the national average, well above it by about $24,000. Okay, and the population growth continues to remain at that high rate. Here in the Northeast, where I reside, 20% of our 25.7 million population live here, and we've seen an increase of 45%, despite the cold weather, which a lot of Asians can't stand here in the deep winter. But we still grow. We grow because of the education, the colleges, and the jobs are all here. Our population grows here. Our median income here is quite significant. Average median income, household income, is $109,000, and that's 14.8% higher than the median income for the Northeast. So we over-index there as well. And the Census Bureau survey of business owners owned here in the Northeast shows it at almost 300,000 people are self-employed here in the Northeast, with an annual payroll of $10 billion. So we're sort of sharing with you some of the highlights of this report. Of course, you will be able to dive deep into the reports after this call and really look to the details of our findings. Out in the West, almost 50%, 46 to be exact, of the entire 25.7 million population live out West. Okay, and that increased by 37% from the years 2000 and 2010. Our purchasing power in the Western states comprised of $272 billion, very, very strong purchasing power. Our household income, again, over indexes, and we're about 10% higher than those regional averages, earning at about 96,000 average earnings, while the West, the average population earns at 87,000. I'd love for you guys to be able to dive into these reports and understand why this State of Asia America report is so important if you want to learn how to do business with the AAPI community. And we're going to end with sort of this slide here to show you that our population continues to grow. It will be the fastest, it will be the largest population in the United States by 2055. And it's evidenced by just one simple slide here with our home purchase loans in 2018. This data hot off the press by HMDA, which is where we got this information. Look at the amount of applications on the slide here. On the whites, the application was almost 3 million. Okay, and broken down to the Hispanic at 318,000, the African American at 190,000, and the AAPI at a little bit over $300,000. You follow the number of applications received from a percentage perspective over to the 3 columns over, and you see the amount of loans that get approved. The white is at about a 72% approval rate, and then the AAPI is at 71% approval rate. The loans originated, the whites at 2.1 million, and the AAPI at just about a little bit above 10% of the loans originated, and the dollar volume is not in proportion to, but over-indexed again compared to the rest of the population, and we're at 70% of total dollars originated for the AAPI. We hope that this report really helps you. I'd like to sort of recap this report. With over almost about 26 million of us living here in the United States, we're expected to become the largest minority group. We have grown by 72% in the last 15 years, and many of the Asian American families still hold very close ties to their traditions. They are collectivists, the collectivist nature, native cultures, while still being able to integrate into the fabric of our American culture. Family comes first for the AAPI community. Education is incredibly important. Okay, working hard and studying hard is a very high value for our demographics. And because of these reasons, the AAPI is the most educated, racially educated, with over 52% of the AAPI enrolling in a college and university immediately after high school. We are the highest earning demographically, and our household income exceeds the average household income. A massive consumer purchasing power at over $1 trillion puts us at the 17th largest economy in the world. Our community is very entrepreneurial compared to other groups, and there are over 2 million of AAPI owned businesses here in the U.S. We produce a large amount, about $708 billion in annual sales volume, and therefore the community, the AAPI community, is one that if you want to learn how to do business with, learn about our culture, learn about how we interact and how we network, please continue to follow ARIA. It's a short $99 membership at aria.org, ARAEE.org, to sign up as a member to join our 17,000 members across the country and get access to this report that we continue to update on an annual basis. We want to thank our sponsors, Freddie Mac and RE/MAX, for continuing to support the good work that ARIA does for our communities in terms of promoting sustainable home ownership for the AAPI community in general. And I hit the nail on the head, and I ended this in 30 minutes. Now it's time for our Q&A. Here is the link for you to be able to download our report. Right after this call, you'll be able to go to aria.org/2019-SAA for State of America report. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, and we'd love to open this up for Q&A.
Hi, everyone. This is Charlie from ARIA National. As we transition into the Q&A section of this presentation, please refer to the GoToMeeting chat box where I will monitor your questions and be able to relay them to Tom for answers. Please take the time now to submit any questions you may have about this presentation or the release of the State of Asia America report in the chat box in the GoToMeeting bar.
Please send the link again. All right, let's pull it back to the last slide so we can show the link. There you go. We'll keep it on this slide. That way it's easy for you to write down. Thank you, Steve. There it is.
Hey, Tom, this is Hope. While we're waiting for questions, it might actually be a good idea to just talk about our Hill visits and our policy forum next week in DC as we celebrate, as you've alluded to, we celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander month during the month of May. Part of what we do is we share the information to not just legislators, but lawmakers and regulators about how to work with our community and the challenges as it relates to home ownership. So I wanted to give you the opportunity to talk about that and perhaps invite our members and attendees of this webinar for next week.
Thank you very much, Hope. Yes, so the next week we ARIA goes to Washington DC to lobby for the interests of the AAPI community. This year we are focusing on 3 items. We're focusing on language access reform, we're focusing on alternative credit, and also on equality, women, and more representation in terms of women as well as minorities in business, in politics, and basically clear across our industries. And so we invite you to, it's still not too late for you to register and join us at aria.org/policy to join us in Washington, D.C. Join our leaders in 41 chapters who is marching in D.C. to cover these policies. We also have a press conference in D.C. next week. Hope I forget exactly when that is. If you wouldn't mind sharing when that press conference is with this audience, that would be helpful.
Sure. Thanks, Tom. So we do have a policy forum that everybody is invited to. That's going to be on Wednesday, May 15th. It will be at Rayburn, and I don't have the meeting room right in front of me. 2016, that's the room. And it will be from 3 to 4:30, immediately followed by a reception. We've got great presenters and speakers, including Congresswoman Grace Meng, Congressman Ted Lieu, and many others who represents us and our voice in the Hill. So that's, again, May 15th, Wednesday from 4:30 p.m. The press conference that Tom had mentioned, we are planning that here in San Gabriel in the greater Los Angeles area. San Gabriel is one of the top communities for Asian Americans here in the West Coast. And just to give you some perspective, about 60% of San Gabriel's population is Asian American. So it is a highly dense Asian American community, and we are using that as a backdrop for the press conference in June, talking about how that community has pretty much transformed just because of the number of movement from within our community. So that's June 28th. We are finalizing the specifics of that, and we'll share that with our membership in the next few weeks. It looks like we have a question from Mariko. The question is, what percentage of the population growth is from immigration versus population growth from within the states? And that's a great question. Thank you for asking that. By simply deduction, it's from data that we see, 2/3 of our population, of the Asian American population, is foreign born. So that's roughly about, 60-65% are foreign born. Tom had mentioned that our population growth is propelled by immigration. We are one of the larger consumers of family-based visa programs and employment-based visa programs. Mariko, while I do not have the exact statistics for you, we can get that for you and send that over to you so that we can answer in a much more accurate format. But that's what we know is 2/3 of our population is foreign born, and from, again, from immigration. So you can, again, make that deduction that about 65% comes from immigration. And I believe, Charlie, from our data, our birth rate is what, almost about 3? 2.53?
Yeah, I believe it's 2.3 to 2.5%.
Which is a little bit higher than the white community or the Caucasian community. And I don't know, quite honestly, what the birth rate is for the other demographic groups. But thank you, Mariko, for asking that question.
The one thing that AAPI community really focuses on is we continue to seek homeownership like never before. Our community wants to own more homes, wants to achieve that American dream, and the work of the Asian Real Estate Association of America is what we do day in and day out, is to basically make sure that we do everything we can in terms of this year language access reform, credit reform, to help our community increase its level of home ownership. We still are 14% below in terms of our home ownership rate to the Caucasian or white American population, despite our educational levels being higher, despite our average household income being higher. There's still a gap in home ownership, and that we continue to work on a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year basis to close that gap. What other questions do we have?
We don't have any other questions, but just to reiterate how our community, kind of like the movement of our community, you alluded to this, Tom, and I think that this is very important for people to take away. While traditionally we are on coastal cities, right, either on the West Coast or Hawaii or DC or Boston, we have certainly seen movement into non-traditional gateway cities. And that is important to note for real estate professionals on the call, equipping your brokerages, equipping your lending institutions to make sure that you mirror the community as it changes is very important, because we all know that we want to do business with people who are similar to us. And so to the extent that you're paying attention to non-traditional MSAs for our community, it includes Birmingham, as Tom had mentioned. You just take a look at Texas in the last decade, how Houston and Dallas and Austin and San Antonio have just transformed into a lot of Asian Americans moving there for affordability reasons, for school district reasons, heavy on the healthcare. So I think that that's a great takeaway for our attendees and our participants to take with them is, again, we're no longer in those coastal cities, while still very heavy on those. The movement of the Asian American community is now into non-gateway and non-coastal cities. So it looks like there's another question. Is there, again from Mariko, is there any data about what % of API homeowners want to purchase their homes renovated versus in as-is condition? I don't know, Cindy, from your data, do you know, or from what you've seen in the past, is that something that we can pull, or do you have any resources for us to share with Mariko, Cindy?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's not on our data, but what we're seeing is one of the biggest barriers to home ownership is really the housing supply. And so if you think about that, and then Asians typically have been living in more urban areas where housing is even has more supply issues. So that is definitely a product that with the renovation product that we can have, and what he's saying is to renovate houses. So while I don't have the data, I think that we are seeing a trend. We just released, we're releasing a renovation product here, and we're hoping that that actually helps solve some of the housing supply problem that we see chronically within the U.S.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. And that's something that we can share with you as well, Mariko, once that is released.
Okay.
Question from Jason. It says, is there any possibility to get data on a specific city, and it looks like you're wanting Greater Chicago? That's something that we can drill down, and we can actually provide that information. Charlie here from our office is willing and able and is excited to actually supply you with that information. He's raising his hand and saying, I can supply that. So, Jason, if you can please provide your contact information over to Charlie, who's monitoring our chat box, we would be happy to supply that information to you. All right, another question from Nancy. Is there interest in buying multifamily properties or other commercial assets? And where are they looking? Nancy, that's a great question. In fact, in the report, we have a section relating to investors, particularly foreign investors. And multifamily is one of the commercial, I would say, assets that foreign investors, particularly from Asia, is looking into. So I encourage for you to take a look at that report. Maybe related to that question is, are Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders also looking into investing into multifamily? I believe that we do have that in the report. In fact, we have a whole section on the home ownership and loan section towards the end of the report that has that data for you. So thank you for asking that question. All right, so we're 2 minutes before time. It doesn't look like we have any other questions. Cindy and Mike and Tom, any last words from any one of you?
Oh, thanks for including us. Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thanks for including us. And again, I think the information here, I think data is very powerful. I think it will really help us better understand this demographic and this population to help reduce the homeownership gap that Tom was mentioning. So please read it. And like I said, there's a lot of good information in there. I did want to also mention, we talked a lot about I think there's a stat in here about 77% of the families speak a language other than English in their homes. And I did want to mention that there is a mortgage translation clearinghouse, and you can see that it's with FHFA, Freddie, and Fannie. It's at fhfa.org/mortgage translation, and it has glossaries, education materials, applications, and counselors in 5 languages by the end of next year. And those languages will be Spanish, Chinese, Korean, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. So again, I wanted to express our gratitude to being to partnering with RE/MAX and ARIA. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you, Cynthia Waldron from Freddie Mac. Thank you, Mike Regan from RE/MAX. Thank you for your continued partnership and sponsorship for this report. We appreciate you. In closing, folks on the call, what you need to understand is we've done all of this data gathering, consolidation, and sharing with you with the help of our members. Our members who across 41 chapters pay $99 a year for their membership to network, to learn about how to do business with the API community, to contribute to their communities, and basically to give back to those who are in need of help from not just a housing perspective, but really professional perspective as it relates to the real estate industry. So I encourage you, if you are not a member and you are on this call, or if you're listening to this call afterwards, please go to our webpage, www.areaa.org. Please pick any one of the 41 chapters to become a member, or if there isn't a chapter close to you, pick the national chapter, and we'd love to help you, help us continue to do this good work, to share this information with you on a year-over-year basis. My name is Tom Trong. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hope, Vanessa, Charlie, Mike, Cynthia, and all others for being on the call. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Tom. This is Charlie from ARIA National. I just wanted to take the opportunity one more time to thank Mike Reagan from RE/MAX and Cynthia Waldron from Freddie Mac. To answer some questions, yes, this webinar has been recorded, and the full report is available for download on the ARIA website, where you can also learn more information about our policy visit, as well as some other political initiatives that we are focusing on this year. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about the Asian American community closest to yours, please contact me directly. I am Charlie, and you can reach me at chamedany@aria.org, or give us a call at our national headquarters, and I can speak with you directly on the phone. As we wrap this up, I would like to thank everyone who has attended today. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. Please feel free to follow up. Once again, thank you so much to Mike Reagan from RE/MAX and Cynthia Waldron from Freddie Mac. We appreciate so much. This report would not be made possible without you. And with that, everyone have a great Wednesday, and we look forward to partnering with you in the future.